especially for the
studies.
Out of this.
Zibima is from Niger Delta.
Told them categorically.
Look at you from that point of view.
My name is Tarela Macklin-Tebiede. I am the director of the Conflict Research Network, West Africa. We are organizing this conference to bring together scholars and policymakers working in the field of social protection in Nigeria. Our main objective is to create an opportunity for policymakers to dialogue with researchers, to bring evidence that will shape how we implement social protection policies in our country, Nigeria. We aim to establish a community of knowledge that can influence how we think and how we produce the policies that will shape and impact on our people, on the most vulnerable people in this country.
Social protection programs and policies of the past being different from the present, and what do you envisage the future to look like?
Chair, I would also like to refer to your kind of overarching question, which I think is a really interesting one, about the way in which social protection, particularly in Nigeria, has kind of evolved and what we can expect for the future. Because I think it raises some of the complex challenges that we collectively face in this space. And for me, one of the most important challenges that we face, which then very much relates to the role that FCDO is trying to play in this space, but then also opens up some pretty significant questions about what role can and should the international community play in supporting social protection.
So it's even bad to the extent that people who are caught up in the poverty trap cannot escape. It is no longer economic. It affects education, it affects health. Same thing happens for the conflict trap, right? People who fight wars, irregular warfare, or who are caught in the web of conflict see themselves, fighting these wars and continue to deplete their economic base.
Between August 2020 and August 2023, Nigeria recorded 3,905 violent conflict events that resulted in 13,260 fatalities, over 1,500 injured people, and over 7,600 kidnapped people. These conflicts include banditry, terrorism, farmer header crisis, cultism or gangsterism, kidnapping, gunmen attacks, secessionist movements, and extrajudicial killings.
We are likely to think that there is a link, and of course there is, between what? Poverty and conflict. Because over the period of time, for those of us who grew up in places where conflicts have been reoccurring, when conflicts happen, there are areas you avoid. So even amidst serious conflicts, there are places that are very, very peaceful because they don't fall within this categorization of what? Urban slums or settlements where the poor and, permit me to use the word of one scholar, the wretched of the earth, where they live. So of course, there's a link between being what? Poor, and then the vulnerability and exposure these poor people have to be used as tools for these conflicts.
Register, it's dynamic, quite alright. There are, even within the households, there are a lot of changes that happen over time. So it needs to be updated. And the project implementation strategy or manual gives two types of updates. We have the routine update, which takes after every 2 to 3 years. We update the register, and we have updated some percentage of the register before Mr. Apera left. Dr. Apera left. And it is the same portion that we are now using for the cash transfer presently.
My name is Ambassador Noja. I am a participant at this conference on conflict research and economic uncertainty in fragile state.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gbemisola Abiola. I'm from Harvard University, and I'm very pleased to be at this conference.
My name is Claudia Wieler. I'm a researcher based at ETH Zurich, which is like the Federal University of Switzerland.
My name is Neka Ikenyo. I'm with the Research and Policy Analysis Directorate here at the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution.
I focus on political violence in Nigeria in my own work, and especially on the link between different types of conflicts.
And this is Goodness Suche from Africa Polling Institute.
I'm architect Abba Yusuf, Dr. Panshak Suchi of the University of Jos.
Social protection is a very key and important issue today in Nigeria because of the massive investment that has been made by the government, international funders and stakeholders across the country.
If we check from successive governments, there's been a lot of social protection and social investment programs in Nigeria. Well, it has actually touched the lives and helps community to redistribute income.
Social protection is something that's very important, and we need to take more actions to ensure that, social protection implementations and policies are being driven out and doled out across board.
I think social protection in Nigeria has made some significant strides, but I believe that there are ways in which things could be done much more efficiently to take care of the most vulnerable people in society.
So far, the conference has really been very important in exposing the issue of social protection in Nigeria, how these policies have been formulated, implemented over time.
One of the issues I've always had with social protection programs in Nigeria is, especially with the more recent ones, what database they're pulling their people in need from, people that benefit from these programs.
As an outsider, I would not dare to judge whether social protection is working in Nigeria or not. But now during the last days, I learned that this in itself is a very contested question.
You are aware that Nigeria, all around the 6 geopolitical zones, are littered with insecurity challenges, making people much more vulnerable and putting a higher demand for a very robust and resilient social policy in Nigeria. And this is what is lacking.
The modalities of this cash transfers, yes, they are commendable, but first of all, the protection of human lives and properties should be the first and paramount measure any government could give to its citizens.
It is not very much on ground in Nigeria. The social protection policy in Nigeria is shaky, is peripheral, is more of artificial in the sense that it is not grounded and is not robust and resilient as it should be to drive the Nigerian economy.
While the government apparently made a great effort to improve the situation in the last 8 to 10 years, there still is room for improvement. I think this is very understandably so.
I think that the ways in which the government is putting together certain programs might efficiently, hopefully, deal with some of the most pressing challenges that the most vulnerable and even people who are at risk are experiencing today.
From 2010 to 2021, the budgetary allocation for social protection issues in Nigeria was over 6 trillion. And that is why we have gathered today to, in these 2 days, talk about this issue. This conference is important because it has gathered both academia, development practitioners, and all of the experts involved and interested in social protection issues to deliberate on these issues and bridge the gap between theory and practice. And I think it's a way forward for the new administration to borrow from our ideas, our policy recommendations, and our way forwards to strengthen their efforts in that regard.
I think that this conference is pretty timely. It's really timely, bringing together different practitioners, different researchers, policymakers, partners to the Nigerian state.
In terms of this conference, what I expect to see is the point of intersection between the policies and practice in terms of social protection.
I'm very happy to be at the conference, and going forward I would expect that more stakeholders like the security personnel, the police, the army, and all involved in security issues in this country should be, well represented, so that we can, brainstorm together and, bring our policies and contributions to live actions.
This is a gathering of supposed experts in social protection programs. So it is hoped that even though we have done studies on the area, that we'll be able to be more informed, and that some of the participants will highlight even further areas of further research that we can go into and prefer policy options for the government as well. Hopefully we'll get it right. We haven't, but we will. And so that's what I hope to get from this conference.
We have a lot of expectations of this conference. The most interesting aspect is the possibility of collaboration between researchers and government. And we see ICPR and Commonwealth Africa as a good entry point, organizations that can mediate between researchers and government.
By the time this conference is over, we want to believe that government will be able to get a lot of input from this conference. And the organizers of the conference too, their policy advocacy should be tailored to the government, and even with a white paper for the government to look at their policy recommendations for them to adopt.
I think that the way we have been able to discuss and unpack some of the challenges and the ways in which we have been able to discuss the future projections of what social protection programs or policies will be about actually makes this conference for me a very, very important one.
And I want to believe that the government of President Tinubu, who has promised that he wants to create change in Nigeria, want to drive change, will be able to tap into the huge resources that is coming out of this conference that we are holding, and to reposition Nigerian social protection policy to begin to bring a win-win for us.
I really learned so much during the last days, understanding how social protection is discussed and thought about in the Nigerian context.
The conference is a very good opportunity for scholars to rub minds together on the way forward, how to design purpose-fit policies, and also how governments can recommend some of their can action some of the recommendations.
Also, institutes, the Institute for Peace, where we are here right now. I'm really glad that we're able to bring all these people together who are very invested in this topic and in this program or in this project.
At the end of the day, we would have more favorable intervention programs targeted at the vulnerables in the country.
Social protection will be successful if it is based on data, and this data can only be generated by researchers. And I'm thinking that through this conference, we should be able to get these findings that emanated from empirical studies being used by policymakers as basis for implementing our social protection program.
So it is hoped that whenever we host these kind of programs, that we are able to formulate policy that we send to the government that would sort of influence or inform government policies.
I take with me a lot of new contacts and friends, and I really hope to stay in touch with the whole Corn family.
Thank you, Continue.